President Trump pushing Congress again to pass health care and tax reform. And while some say the mess over all these intel leaks is delaying the White House's agenda, Rush Limbaugh thinks it's something else closer to home.
The Republican Party, which is ostensibly the party of the president, and they owe their majority to him, particularly the Senate, are roadblocking Donald Trump more than the Democrats are.
John, what do you say?
I think that is spot on. Look, you've always had leaks. George Washington had a leak from one of his own generals, Benedict Arnold. He was still able to win a pretty big war that founded our country. The leaks are bad, but they're not the problem. The problem is the GOP. They had 7 years to get repeal or replace Obamacare on the president's desk. What in the world have they been doing? The Democrats also, they want to fix it themselves. They haven't offered any alternative to fix it. But the Republicans, to me, are the ones that are to blame. You've got tax cuts. Tax reform. You don't know if a border-adjusted tax is in there. You don't know how to make it revenue neutral. They don't even have an idea of what corporate tax rate they want. They don't even know the rate. I think that Trump, he has his faults, but he could be a cross between Abraham Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt, and he still wouldn't get anything done with these horrible congressmen that we have in D.C.
Jonas, is it leakers or GOP lawmakers who are fouling things up for everybody?
It's a little both, because the leaking is letting Trump become the fall guy for what essentially is failure with Congress, which is they don't really make any sense. So they're trying to be vague about it and pretend that somehow you can solve all these problems of our long-term deficit with food stamp and Medicaid cuts, and somehow have tax cuts and have it all work out and not touch any benefits that their constituents get. Whenever those come up from Republicans, mortgage deductions come up all the time, they throw it away. Forget disability, Medicare, Social Security. That can't happen. So they can't really make a policy that ever is going to balance a budget, because they have to address benefits that their own constituents get, not the few that they think only the other side gets. It is a lie. It is being exposed, and they're sort of blaming it on Trump, who's part of it, to some extent, for not solving it. But there's no math that's going to work here. You can't balance the budget on food stamp cuts alone.
Lee, who's to blame?
And NPR.
Lee, who's to blame?
Look, I think it would be easy to blame it on the leaks if you were somebody who wanted to. I think the real problem here, though, is I think it's a real lack of messaging. If this health care plan exists and they put it forward as they say that they have, how is it that it is less popular today than when they started? It's because they haven't sold the thing. They haven't told us what's in it. They haven't told us why it's better, how it's going to help the American people, how it's going to help the economy. They have not sold it. Period. The tax reform bill, likewise, they did not sell it. They had a great first few days when Mnuchin talked about it. They were talking about, tying it to the economy, tying it to jobs. It was a great start, and then we've heard nothing since. They need a message, they need discipline, and they need everybody across the board saying the same thing. And you know what we also need? We need Donald Trump not to be tweeting about Russia when he's saying, when the White House is saying, we're not talking about Russia anymore, and the next day he's talking about Russia. It's not just leaks.
Julie,
it's lack of discipline.
If you go through President Trump's Twitter feed, it'll be about health care and tax cuts and the economy, and then it's like Russia.
I find
it's
it
like
enormously entertaining. Sometimes when I'm in a bad mood, I go check it just to see what he's talking about. I have to agree with Lee on a couple of points. First of all, there is a messaging problem within the GOP. There are a lot of distractions going on. He's not necessarily on message. But really, I think that the problem with getting Trump's, agenda passed through is Trump's agenda. I think that, we should honestly give kind of a round of applause to people in the GOP right now who are saying that bill, that budget bill, that health care bill is not good for my constituents, and I am not going to put it through. When we are talking about a health care bill that's going to take away health care from 23 million people, that's going to...
some of them lose it by choice, because they're not going to be mandated by the government to buy it.
True, and some of them are choosing not to buy it because they have to buy rent and food otherwise, because tax sharing credits and cost sharing reductions are being eliminated, and it's much less affordable for a lot of those low-income people. So what I'm saying is, I think that the issue is not, oh, these people are stalling these things in Congress. It's not the leaks. It's the fact that these bills are not addressing the needs of the American people. And honestly, bravo to the Republicans who are saying these do not serve the needs of my constituents, and I'm not going to pass this.
Gary B., here's why it's the Republicans' fault. Because they've had 7 years to come up with an Obamacare replacement, and they don't have it. What about tax reform? People have been crying for it. Where is it?
Look, I agree with everything you just said. I guess in Julie's mind, if only we could have another 8 years of that wonderful Obama administration when the economy just skyrocketed. Look,
I didn't mention his name.
I get it. Here's my take, though, is that it's a little bit of intel, but it's mostly on the GOP. They need to get a spine. They need to get behind. This is their golden opportunity. They control everything.
Amen.
They could get some stuff done.
Yeah.
Surely, as John said, they can come up with something better than Obamacare, which I think is the most despised piece of legislation ever. So they need to get their act together. Right. If not, we are going to have another 8 years of whatever, Chelsea Clinton administration.
Oh, I'm getting in the business of selling spines to folks. Thanks, guys. Cashing in just over an hour from now. Eric, what do you guys have coming up?
Hi, Dagan. President Trump telling world elites to buzz off, from pulling out of the Paris climate deal to blunt talk on fair trade and nations paying their fair share. Is this exactly what we need in our president? One that protects U.S. workers and taxpayers. Plus, Hillary blames fake news and the mainstream media loves it, but they hate it when Trump does it. Me cashing in. We'll see you, all of you, 11:30.
Thanks, Eric. We'll be watching. But up here first, Kathy Griffin losing gigs and deals after this controversial anti-Trump photo. And now she's blaming the president